Number 9. The OYO Hotel and Casino sits just steps from the south end of the Las Vegas Strip on East Tropicana Avenue. From the outside, it still looks like a casino. But in the past 12 months, everything that made it one has been quietly stripped away. It started in August of 2025, when Hooters restaurant closed at the property without warning. No announcement, no replacement plan, just gone. That closure mattered more than it might seem, because the Hooters brand had been the one consistent identity holding this property together across multiple ownerships. Before it became OYO, this address cycled through 7 different names: Howard Johnson, Paradise, 20th Century, Treasury, Pacifica, Polynesian, and then Hooters. Each name change was not a reinvention, it was a retreat. And when the last recognizable anchor walked out the door in 2025, the retreat became a collapse. Then came the table games. In September of 2025, management laid off most of its live dealer staff, citing low business. Table game hours were slashed to just 4 hours a day. By October, management told the remaining dealers it was over. Live table games at OYO were being shut down entirely. The famous $1 blackjack tables that had made this property a genuine destination for everyday strip players were gone. A casino that built its last loyal customer base on being affordable and accessible had stopped being a casino. And in January of 2025, a cyber attack hit OYO's systems. The breach was not publicly disclosed until September of that year, nearly 9 months later. OYO joined Caesars, MGM, and Boyd Gaming as the 4th major Las Vegas property hit by cybercriminals in the span of 2 years. Except OYO had none of the financial resources of those companies to absorb the damage or manage the fallout. What is left today is a budget hotel with slot machines. Guest reviews describe broken elevators, unresolved billing disputes, rooms that have not been updated in years, and a management team that does not respond. 7 names. 7 chances. And what now looks like a slow and very quiet end. If you are new here, and you want the full, unfiltered picture of what is really happening in Las Vegas right now, subscribe and hit the bell. This channel does not hold back. And what is coming later in this video gets significantly worse. Number 8. The Rio Las Vegas. This one is different from the others because the Rio had a real and credible shot at a comeback. It just may have run out of road before crossing the finish line. Dreamscape Companies purchased the Rio from Caesars Entertainment in 2019 for $516 million. They followed that with a $340 million renovation. New rooms in the Ipanema Tower, a refreshed casino floor, new dining concepts. Phase 1 of the renovation wrapped up at the end of 2024, and then everything stopped. As of January 2026, Phase 2 of the renovation has not started. The Masquerade Tower, the older and more deteriorated half of the hotel, sits completely untouched. In August of 2025, Dreamscape secured a $176 million loan. It was the largest transaction in the lender's history. Industry insiders immediately began asking questions. Las Vegas insider Vital Vegas reported that the Rio was rumored to be in talks with lenders over a potential haircut or sale. Reports described a property on a hiring freeze and the development deal that would have changed everything. An arena partnership that would have transformed the northern parking lot into a major entertainment anchor fell through entirely. That deal was the growth catalyst the property needed to justify its off-strip location. Without it, the Rio is surrounded by the loyalty ecosystems of MGM Grand and Caesars properties that sit minutes away and offer visitors no compelling reason to choose the Rio instead. Then, in late 2025, Hash House A Go-Go, a breakfast institution that had been part of the Rio since 2007, closed. It was replaced with a smaller concept. When a tenant with nearly 2 decades at a property walks out, it is not a coincidence. It is a signal. Dreamscape has now committed over $850 million to the Rio between acquisition and renovation costs. Phase 2 is frozen. The money is borrowed. And the comeback story this property desperately needed is now seriously in doubt. Number 7. The Linq. Of all the casinos on this list, the Linq's problems may be the hardest to solve. Not because of debt, not because of age, because of simple, unforgiving math. The Linq was built on the site of the old Imperial Palace after a $550 million overhaul in 2014. The high roller observation wheel, the open-air pedestrian promenade. It was designed to reinvent what a mid-strip casino property could be, and in one sense, it worked. Foot traffic through the Linq promenade is real and consistent. Thousands of people walk through every single day. The problem is that fewer than 1 in 5 of those people spends money inside the casino or the hotel, a conversion rate below 20%. On a casino floor of just 33,000 square feet, the smallest on the entire Las Vegas Strip, that number is fatal. Strip-level rents and labor costs require volume. When the crowds walk through and keep walking, there is no volume to work with. Caesars has quietly begun describing the Linq internally as a non-core asset. Budget cuts have already reduced facade maintenance and lounge investment. The property has become a corridor, a place people pass through on the way to somewhere else. The 3-acre parcel it sits on is now valued at over $420 million. When the land is worth that much, and the casino cannot convert its own foot traffic into revenue, the conversation about the property's future stops being about the casino entirely. Number 6. Treasure Island. Treasure Island's current troubles did not begin in a boardroom or an earnings call. They began with a demolition crew. When the walkway connecting Treasure Island to the former Mirage was torn down in 2024 as part of the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino conversion next door, Treasure Island lost its direct pedestrian link to the Strip's main flow of visitors. What appeared to be a routine infrastructure change during a neighboring renovation turned out to be a serious and lasting financial wound. Foot traffic data showed a 30% drop in hourly visitor counts following the walkway's removal. That drop correlated directly with an estimated $22 million annual shortfall in slot revenue. Treasure Island has operated since 1993. It built its identity first through the outdoor Buccaneer Bay Pirate Show, and later through the steady overflow of foot traffic from the Mirage next door. Both of those pipelines are now gone. The Pirate Show ended years ago. The Mirage connection has been severed. What remains is a free-standing property that visitors now have to seek out deliberately in a market where choices are increasingly being made in favor of newer and larger competitors. Deferred upgrades and shrinking casino traffic are compounding the problem month by month. Treasure Island is a cautionary example of what happens when the geography around a casino shifts, and the casino itself has no way to shift with it. Number 5. Circus Circus. Opened in 1968 as a family-friendly spectacle under the big top, Circus Circus is the oldest original structure still standing on the Las Vegas Strip. For decades, that history was a selling point. Today, it is increasingly a burden. Phil Ruffin acquired the 67-acre property in 2019. Since then, the maintenance record tells a damning story. In June of 2021, federal safety inspectors cited Circus Circus for 30 separate violations. Inspectors found mold in the heating and air conditioning ducts, leaking plumbing in the second-floor kitchen, and inadequate fire suppression in the arcade area. Internal maintenance records logged over 1,400 work orders between 2022 and today, with 68% of them marked as deferred due to budget restrictions. Staff have described persistent odors and increased sick days that they link directly to mold exposure. These are not the symptoms of an aging building receiving gradual care. These are the symptoms of a building being managed for cash extraction rather than long-term survival. And the financial logic behind that approach becomes clear when you look at the land. Brokers have begun pitching the 67-acre parcel in off-market conversations, with valuations placing the dirt alone at over $500 million. For a casino whose operations cannot justify the cost of its own repairs, the math of demolition and redevelopment is not a distant threat. It is the most obvious next move. Number 4. The Flamingo, Las Vegas. The Flamingo has operated without interruption since 1946, nearly 80 years on the same corner of Las Vegas Boulevard. That kind of longevity commands respect. It also accumulates costs that no amount of nostalgia can offset. Internal maintenance records describe the relentless reality of keeping a nearly 80-year-old building functional. The original plumbing fails year after year. Electrical systems have been retrofitted repeatedly, but never fully replaced. There is an annual cost of $2 million just to maintain the famous flamingo habitat on the property grounds. In 2024, a confidential internal memo from Caesars weighed the possibility of relocating or closing the bird colony entirely, citing mounting costs and the need for budget containment. The 15-acre parcel the Flamingo occupies is now appraised at over $620 million. That figure dwarfs the revenue the property generates per square foot, which sits at the lowest level across the entire Caesars portfolio. Guest reviews increasingly describe dated rooms and a fading sense of the glamour the property once represented. Investors and analysts have begun asking publicly whether the sentimental value of the Flamingo is worth the drag it places on Caesars' bottom line. The Flamingo's predicament is no longer a question of whether it can survive on charm and history. It is a stark and increasingly urgent equation of heritage against hard numbers. And right now, the numbers are winning. Number 3. Palace Station. Palace Station opened in 1976 as the Bingo Palace, a working-class anchor for Las Vegas locals far from the glare of the Strip. It grew into a 1,000-room property with a fiercely loyal customer base, a poker room, and an identity built on serving the people who actually live in this city. That identity is now being consumed by the weight of the corporate debt load above it. In 2007, Station Casinos underwent a leveraged buyout for $5.3 billion that loaded the company with debt it could not sustain. By 2009, bankruptcy filings laid bare just how exposed every property in the portfolio had become. The company survived. But the scars remained. In 2020, Station Casinos closed 3 of its properties permanently. Texas Station, Fiesta Rancho, and Fiesta Henderson were shuttered, and the land was sold rather than the doors being reopened. That decision established a template. When a station property becomes more valuable as land than as a casino, it gets sold. Palace Station sits on 42 acres appraised between $80 million and $100 million. Internal audits from 2024 flagged $9 million in underfunded repairs and recommended either rebranding or outright divestiture. Guest reviews describe repeated plumbing failures, water leaks, and mold complaints. Multiple flood incidents were recorded across the property in the past year alone. Station Casinos carries a debt load approaching $3 billion. Analysts have pointed to Palace Station specifically as a candidate for sale or closure, particularly as the land value continues to rise while the business above it stagnates. What began as a refuge for Las Vegas locals is now caught between the loyalty of its remaining customers and the cold logic of what the property is worth to a developer. Now, before we get to number 1, this list cannot move forward without acknowledging what happened just a few days ago, right here in Las Vegas. On March 5th, 2026, at 2 in the morning, the East Side Cannery on Boulder Highway was imploded. The tower dropped in seconds. 6 years after closing during the pandemic shutdown of 2020, the property never reopened. 300 hotel rooms and 64,000 square feet of casino floor sat dark for the entirety of that time. The surrounding neighborhood absorbed the blight of an abandoned building on its main corridor. Boyd Gaming acquired the land for $45 million in early 2025. Not the business, not the brand, the land. Because the land was the only thing left with value. The residential development that will replace it was the only logical conclusion. The East Side Cannery is not just a closure. It is a preview. It is the clearest possible demonstration of where the trajectory of every casino on this list is pointing. When the dirt beneath a shuttered casino is worth more than any realistic hope of revival, demolition becomes the answer. Las Vegas has now entered a period where that answer is being chosen more frequently and more rapidly than at any point since the post-pandemic era began. Keep that in mind for number 1. Number 1. Caesars Entertainment. Everything that has been said about the casinos on this list, the deferred maintenance, the falling traffic, the land valuations outpacing operating returns, the regulatory pressure, the shrinking customer base, all of it flows upward and lands here. In 2025, Caesars swung to a net loss of $502 million. Las Vegas revenue for the company fell to $4.05 billion, a drop of 4.7% year over year, even as the broader Nevada gaming market held relatively flat. Occupancy at Caesars Strip hotels fell to 66.7%. Revenue per available room dropped by nearly 29%. These are not the numbers of a company navigating a temporary downturn. These are the numbers of a portfolio under sustained structural pressure. The regulatory picture made everything worse. In 2025, Caesars was named in federal anti-money laundering hearings tied to convicted illegal bookmaker Matthew Bowyer, who was allowed to move freely through multiple Caesars properties for years, despite documented red flags about the source of his funds. The resulting fine and the compliance overhaul that followed forced deep cuts across the company, triggering another round of deferred maintenance and cost containment at the precise moment when the portfolio needed reinvestment. Beginning January 1st of 2026, a new federal tax change reduced the deductibility of gambling losses from 100% to 90%. For the high roller segment that fills Caesars premium suites and private gaming salons, that change immediately raised their effective cost of play. The early data from January 2026 tells the story. the Las Vegas Strip posted an 11% year-over-year revenue decline. Baccarat revenue, the single most important metric for tracking the behavior of high-end players, fell 44%. The high rollers are pulling back. Total Strip visitation fell to 38.5 million visitors in 2025, down from 41 million the year before. International arrivals fell another 6%. Canadian visitors, one of the most reliable international audiences for Las Vegas, began canceling trips in significant numbers in response to trade tensions. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority called 2025 one of the most complex operating environments the destination had navigated outside of the pandemic. Caesars operates 8 casino hotels and 1 non-gaming hotel on the Strip. The properties on that list include the Flamingo, the Linq, and Caesars Palace itself. The company has already begun internally categorizing several of its own properties as non-core assets. That phrase, non-core, is the quiet admission that the land beneath those properties is worth more than the businesses running on top of them. What makes Caesars the #1 casino in trouble right now is not that any single property is at the point of collapse. It is that the trouble is everywhere at once, cascading through an entire portfolio with very little room left to absorb further shocks. When a company this size bleeds at this rate, it does not just signal weakness at the top of the market, it destabilizes every level of the ecosystem beneath it. Las Vegas has survived recessions, pandemics, and reinventions before. It will face this moment the same way it has faced every other. But the shape of what comes next is already visible in the implosion clouds over Boulder Highway and the vacancy reports coming out of the Strip's biggest operators. The land is worth more than the legacy. And in Las Vegas right now, that logic is moving faster than anyone predicted. If this video gave you a clearer picture of where Las Vegas is actually heading, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. There is a lot more of this story still to tell.